Today I'm here with Grammy-nominated record producer, mixing engineer, and recording engineer, Doug Fensky.
Hello everyone, pleasure to be here.
Pleasure to have you.
Great.
So my first question for you is, what piece of advice would you give to a high school student aspiring to become part of the music industry?
Well, I think the first thing that I would say would be, and it's not even just music, it's for anything. If you desire to do anything in life, the first thing to do is really just to get your feet wet and start at least an attempt at doing it. A really great way to start off, and the way that I started off when I was in high school, because I started when I was in high school as well, a long time ago, was I just acquired a DAW, a digital audio workstation. It's one that they don't even make anymore. It was called Sonar. It was on the old PC, right? And then I just kind of started figuring out how to play a keyboard into the DAW and how to kind of edit things and learning about different kinds of tracks and just the general operating of a DAW and workstation, and understanding kind of the way that things kind of come in and out and the way that things sound and what have you. I mean, I didn't have formal education until years and years and years and years later, but having that little bit of understanding of, I've had my hands behind this, I've hit my head against the wall a little bit because I'm frustrated. I know that I need to actually have training in this if I want to make this my career and turn my passion into my job. But that's kind of the first step. The first step is just becoming familiar with what the process is like on a small scale, so that as you start learning and growing, you can build it out to a large scale.
So as a high school student, they're juggling many things such as sports, ASB, extracurricular activities, and clubs. So
Sure.
What is one way Cre8 Music Academy can help students who are trying to get their feet into beginning? What is one way Cre8 Music Academy can help with their schedule?
So it depends on what time of the year that an individual desires to take a course, right? So there's two different kinds of courses. There's what's called a full-time course and what's called a part-time course. A full-time course is where you're in class 3 hours a day, all week, right? And then you have to work in the lab on projects. A part-time course is when you're in class 2 nights a week, right? That being said, with everything else that high school students have going on, we tend to have some high school students' ages and some younger ages in our summer courses, right? Our summer courses, we have that full-time course that I mentioned that begins in both June and July. And we also have a part-time course that begins in June as well. So I know that there's no homework over the summer, at least unless you're in AP classes, right? And then they make you read and stuff. I had to do that too.
Yeah.
So there's less homework, we'll say, right? There's less homework, and maybe there's some other family and travel obligations, but oftentimes, you're able to weave that in and out. So I would recommend those summer courses, and those do fill up because they're very popular because of that, right? Because they're kind of in that time of year. So, the deadline's approaching to be able to sign up for those, but there's still certainly a little bit of time, and our admissions team does a great job at making sure that people end up in courses that benefit them and that help their schedule.
In the first question, you mentioned the word DAW.
Yes.
Many people don't know what a DAW is, or if they do know what it is, they know it as just GarageBand because that's the first one that they start off with. So, what type of programs do you guys do here? Like, what type of DAWs do you use? And how are students able to get familiar with the DAWs and work with them?
Well, first of all, we'll clear up. DAW is the digital audio workstation. It's the software that we use to create songs, right? There's several different kinds of them. GarageBand is one of them. And if you're a high school student who's been working in GarageBand, that's fantastic. That's great. You've already kind of started to do what I mentioned earlier, to kind of get your feet wet and at least start attempting to do this on your own and understanding, the way that things are structured. That being said, the two DAWs that we work with here are Logic Pro, and Pro Tools. So Logic is very easily attainable, frankly, because you can buy it on the App Store. And when Apple purchased Logic a few years ago, they skinned it visually to resemble GarageBand, so that it's kind of a softer landing, going from something that's introductory like GarageBand into something that's a little bit more advanced like Logic. And again, that's available on the App Store, and it's inexpensive. Pro Tools isn't visually completely different, and frankly, none of the DAWs are. All the DAWs are kind of cousins, to be honest, right? We all kind of do very similar things. You might go about it in a little bit different fashion, and one technique might make it work better for one or the other. But that being said, Pro Tools would be the second DAW, and then that's got a little bit more going on from an editing perspective, or from this thing that we call mixing, right? Mixing perspective. But that being said, it's really those two. It's really Logic Pro and it's really Pro Tools, and they're just kind of a step up there from GarageBand.
There's so many trends now happening in today's society, especially with social media and everything. Music goes through trends as well. So as a producer, how do you keep up with all of these different trends that young students like us look for in music?
Oh, because you guys just know everything.
Yeah.
No, it is very important, right? It's very important. The way that I personally do it, and the way that a lot of my peers do it, is we monitor charts. All right, whether those charts be on Billboard, in particular the Hot 100, whether those be the Spotify US 50, Global 50, or the Apple Music charts, or what have you. It's very easy to look at a glance. To see kind of what's trending, and then to audibly put that into example. If you just run down, you don't even have to listen to the whole song. Frankly, if you listen to 90 seconds of each song, you're like, okay, no, I know what's kind of trending in that way. Now, that being said, high school age is an early adopter, so a lot of those times, those trends will kind of start there, and then what I like to say is what's most accessible of a trend, or what's most accessible of a subgenre, is what really kind of becomes something new, right? So, for example, if you were to take like the drum patterns from trap music, right? Yeah. That's the most, that when somebody listens to a song like that, they walk away from that like with the drums at their head, right? So then that's what then becomes commercialized, and not to say commercialized in a good way, because that means that we're hitting a wide span of audience. That's what becomes commercialized, and that's why you end up hearing drums like that in a Post Malone record or what have you, right? It's because it started there, and it started as a trend, and then what's most accessible, the thing that you remember the most, is what becomes for commerce. So that's high school age students are a very good indicator for that, as far as what might end up becoming widespread across the country, across genre, across age, across boundary, across everything. And you really monitor it by just watching charts and then just taking a listen. It's a pleasurable thing to be able to do. It's not a burden. You're like, oh my God, I got to go listen to all these songs. Yeah. Right? That's not like anybody's anymore. It's a good way to make a living.
There's many different ways students learn. They're either like a visual learner, or they have to like actually like a hands-on learner. So what is the learning experience here at Cre8 Music Academy that the students are able to get?
So that's something that I feel actually very passionately about, and something that I curate to make sure that everybody can kind of sit down and walk away with something that makes them better than they were when they came in. All right. So the way that it works here is, classes are 3 hours long. So all of our student producers, we refer to them as student producers, we don't call them students. Right? Yeah. Our student producers come and they sit in our classroom. And then what I do is I lecture and demonstrate and discuss with them, right, for the period of 3 hours. Now, what that topic is rotates from day to day, right, within a course. What that topic is, and then we lecture and demonstrate. So then at the end of the 3 hours, I then take all of the slides that I use to demonstrate, in addition to any other related materials that we may have mentioned during the day, and I send them all to everyone that's in class as a zip file, right? That way, they have kind of an index of the day, and then room to grow into things. And after that, then they go in the lab, and then they practice the things that I demonstrated. Right? So then when they come back to class the next day, it's not a situation where I have to furiously copy down a PowerPoint, or I have to really try and scribble stuff down, or I have to memorize a bunch of lists, right? For us here, and especially for people that are interested in music, memorizing lists and furiously copying down a PowerPoint, that's not a real way to learn. It really is watching someone demonstrate the proper way to do things, and then having a guide to practice doing it the right way on my own. And that's the way we kind of curate and structure the learning environment.
So a lot of the students, they don't have access to equipment such as the computer, the DAWs, and everything. So what is, like you mentioned, the lab, what is the lab, and what can they do in the lab? So
the lab is a collection of 10 computer stations, right? In addition to this studio that we sit in here right now, right? This is our on-campus studio. What it is, and it's a computer that's loaded with software. It's not just Logic and Pro Tools, as we previously mentioned. There's a lot of virtual instruments that are inside of it. Omnisphere, Serum, there's Contact, there's Battery, there's tons of stuff, right? There's also plugins as well as instruments, right? There's Waves plugins, EQs, compressors, reverbs. There's over 500 gigs of production software on every computer in our facility, right? So, depending on what we're focusing on, let's say that we have a discussion and a lecture in a class about tuning vocals. Then the individuals would be able to take their files and then go into the lab and then practice with Melodyne and Auto-Tune how to tune a vocal. And then they would come back and I would say, okay, cool guys, you gave the tuning the vocal of the spin, here's the next layer that we're going to put on it. And then we're going to put another layer on it and we're going to build it and build it and build it. In addition to coursework, in addition to required projects, student producers are also able to work on their own stuff here, right? Obviously, they have to finish their coursework first, right? But they're also open to be able to do that as well. In this studio here as well, they can record vocals. We have the booth here. They can record synths, guitars, we got all this stuff here, and any amount of actively learning is a good thing that we like to see inside these walls.
So many students have taken your courses, have developed and become the amazing producers they are today. Mm-hmm. What is one student you can tell us about who has accomplished many things and who's now emerging into the music industry?
Well, we have a lot, obviously. Yeah. We have a lot. I would say one that comes to mind off the top of my head would be someone named Angela Parrish. Angela came to us as a high-level musician, right? High-level musician, trained in jazz and piano. She's actually the singer on the first song on La La Land, in the movie La La Land, right? So, but she came to us wanting to be more into production instead of just performance and composition like she had done it, right? And she went through all of the courses and is now not only producing for new clients and for individuals that she's worked with previously, but she's also even mastering for them as well, right? And she's a really cool story, and to be able to do that, to take an individual who has so much knowledge of music theory and creativity, and then to fill in kind of the production side of it, and then to see those two things merge and to see an individual be successful. I think that speaks a lot to the way that things work around here. Something else about our school is that there's a large sense of community, in the sense that with regard to collaborators, you may not know it, but when you sit down for your first class, like there are several of them that are already sitting around, it's because everybody that's in the room, we're all here for the same reason. We're all here for the same reason, and we're all very like-minded. And it kind of just does breed collaboration, both within your group and within your class, but within other groups that may be running, in the other part-time class or full-time class or what have you. So it's a nice area for us to be able to explore our creativity and to be able to develop professional relationships that push us forward.
So Faisy and I were fortunate enough to take your class, and it was amazing.
You guys were wonderful. It was a pleasure having you.
We learned so many things, and you're a great teacher when you demonstrate everything. But what is your favorite thing to teach to your students, and what do you feel is your best one?
Favorite and best? I guess those could qualify as the same thing, right? I think those are the same thing. For me, well, obviously, I have a lot of stuff that I'm very fond of across the timeline, because the courses cover the inception, the idea of a song, all the way down to master, right? They cover the entire span, so that's a lot. It's 60 hours worth of teaching. That being said, I think my favorite class to teach would be one that you guys had, is arrangement, right? Arrangement being the order in which different sections of a song appear or repeat. That's something that's very, very, very important in a song for commerce, right? As you guys know from your listening and from your trend setting, right? You guys aren't hearing these intros that are 90 seconds long and having these things drag out where we have to wait 2 minutes to hear a chorus or something along these lines. The lengths and transitions of these parts are very calculated. And on that day of arrangement, we listened to 2,000 bars of music. I don't know if you realize that. Do you realize that we listened to 2,000 bars of music that day?
No, I just remember piano.
But it's nice. That was good. Right? So that's a very important day, and it really kind of sets the tone for an individual's career, because that's not something that ever ends. For as long as you desire to work in music, you have to study and craft your own arrangements as well as other individuals of what you aspire to be like. So it's just a really important day, and it's probably my favorite class to teach.
When I first came here, I believe I was 14. I believe I was 14 years old when I came here, and I was a little nervous because I was so young. I think I was the youngest one in the class. But when I came to Cre8, I felt like a very nice home family environment. Mm-hmm. So if you would like to touch on that a little bit, and how you make everyone feel so welcomed here.
Well, I think that's easy for us, right? I think the first thing that I would mention would be the fact that everyone is like-minded, regardless of if you're 14 or 47 or whatever. Yeah. Everybody's here for the same reason. Again, that being said, we're a smaller facility. We're not a large, huge, sprawling school like you may find kind of more so in the area. you know, we're more of an intimate setting, whereas there's a lot of interaction one-on-one with the staff, and again, a lot of interaction with your classmates as well. So I think really those few things in particular are really kind of what contribute to that sense that you may have felt while you were here, because I see you going in and out the exact same way that you see me going in and out, and we have little chats and exchanges and what have you. It's not a situation where I'm like, okay, I'm going to lead us in class and I'm going to go in my office and shut the door and bye-bye, see you tomorrow. Like, obviously, you know, it's very different than that. So, you know, those are probably the things I would imagine that contribute to that.
For more information on Cre8 Music Academy, make sure to visit their website and follow them on all social media. It was a pleasure having this interview with you, Doug. Thank you very much.
Pleasure having you with you as well. And we look forward to having any of you guys at school. You know, we also have fundamental courses that teach kind of the introductory areas of music theory or of technical stuff about the DAW and about MIDI and this kind of thing. So, you know, really wherever they are in their arc, you guys can come see us and we can help you along. So I hope to see you guys all here.